Happy Friday, Vols fans, and welcome back to another episode of the VolsCast, episode 4, the preview episode for the Vols' opponent this weekend, NC State, a neutral game. And, let's get started. I know y'all probably noticed things new that I've added to my video. First of all, I know we got a new intro. And second of all, I want to introduce MYLAN BREWER, my uncle, who played a little collegiate football himself. He's a football coach currently at the high school that he went to, a wide receivers coach, and is now a school teacher there too. So, and he's also under the weather. So, MYLAN, do you want to kick it off for us? Talk about the past games.
Yeah, sure. So I was thinking, Gavin, no better way to kick off this week than let's talk about week 1 of college football. Man, was it great to be back. Waking up Saturday morning and just knowing it was hot here in Tennessee, no doubt. I'm sure in Alabama as well. It's not that crisp fall feel just yet, but waking up, let's start with who played well. Let's start out Georgia. Georgia took care of business against Clemson, noon kickoff, winning convincingly. Georgia looks great. Penn State on the road in Morgantown. Really impressed by what Penn State did. Could they be the best or the second best in the Big Ten this year? We'll wait and see. Let's see what Ohio State is made out to be. I do know that Jeremiah Smith, freshman receiver from Ohio State, is very, very legit. Coaching receivers, I pay attention to the receivers. I love that kid, and they got a gem in 5-star Jeremiah Smith. Let's turn to who else played well, and it happened to be the Miami Hurricanes in Gainesville. And man, Sunbelt Billy, Gavin, what do you think? What about Sunbelt Billy? What's going to happen to Sunbelt Billy? Is he gone?
I think Sunbelt Billy is on the hot seat this year, and if Florida doesn't turn it around this year, then they're certainly in trouble. And Florida was actually projected to win 4.5 games this year, and with Tennessee playing against Florida at home, it doesn't seem like they're going to get much better than the spot that they're at right now. So,
yeah, you look next week. If my memory serves me correct, I believe Florida plays Samford. I believe they used to be, maybe still are in the same conference as ETSU, locals team here near me. Sure, they should take care of business against Samford. But after that, you look, they might have one more cupcake somewhere in there, and then it's the gauntlet. So Miami takes care of business in Florida. Other than Miami, we got Florida. Let's talk about another school, Florida State, in the state of Florida. Let's talk about all three of them. Florida State. What the heck is going on in Florida State? Mike Norvell. I know he's beside himself right now. Watched the game last night. First, they go to Dublin and lose to Georgia Tech on a game-winning field goal. Is what it is. First game jitters. Last night we watched Boston College come into Florida State and absolutely, I kind of thought embarrassed Florida State at home. I would use the word embarrassed. I thought the quarterback play for Florida State was very poor in DJ. I just think that Florida State is in a state where, as well as the University of Florida, they need some help. They need help badly, and I think they're going to be they could be looking elsewhere. Both schools at the end of the year. Someone else, real quick. The last one I want to touch on real quick, Gavin, is LSU. LSU goes on the road. No, sorry, they didn't go on the road. They neutral site game against USC. I believe it was in Las Vegas, and they lose the game late. Brian Kelly obviously is furious post game. Talks about needing to execute more. Very, very upset with his program, and as any coach would. And you see the anger come out. He's angry with his team. Gavin, you have anything to touch on that game?
Speaking of angry, after the game, if y'all haven't seen the interview yet, y'all can look it up on ESPN or YouTube or whatever. And while y'all are in YouTube, might as well go and subscribe or like to my channel. And post-game interview, back what I was talking about. He slams the table, talking about how they need to execute better and they need to finish a game against an opponent. Talking about if you're gonna beat an opponent, play off 60 minutes and don't give up. Basically,
I like it. I like it. So you wanted to touch on Gavin, Texas A&M. Texas A&M plays Notre Dame at home. Notre Dame goes on the road. A&M's preseason ranked a top 15 program. Was that right? Top 20?
They were ranked 20, I believe.
20, okay. They're ranked 20, and I think Notre Dame comes in at what? Was it 9, 7?
7.
7, okay. So they're top 10 team. I thought Notre Dame, both teams offensively was very stagnant early on. I mean, we saw field goal. I mean, it was kind of boring. We want points, or if it's no points, then we want to see a defensive, kind of like a bar fight. As I look at that game, we were talking earlier, and you said that you know is Elko already in trouble? I mean? Personally, I think that the expectations were a little high already in Aggie Land in year one. I understand that they have all the amenities to be great. They have the oil money in Texas. They have the stadium. They have the 12th man. They have the donors, the boosters, etc. However, to me, you got to give. No matter where you're at, you gotta take maybe a year or two. Obviously, we might get to Alabama later, but what's your take on A&M? Expectations too high or not?
You know, you kind of laid it on the points there. I mean, yes, it is Texas A&M and SEC school where you're expected to do well, but there's also a you got to rebuild. You're either going to rebuild or you're going to reload. In this case, A&M is rebuilding. They lost players. They lost coaches. Think of Heupel whenever he first got there. I'm sure people had high expectations for him. I'm sure he had high expectations, but think they went, is it 7-6 that year? If I believe.
Yeah, year one. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And turn around in year two, end up going 11-2 that next year in the Knoxville. So I think you might see a similar storyline in College Station this year.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And then Gavin, you wanted to go ahead and get to Saturday's game for Tennessee, right? You want to go ahead and turn that's kind of all I had. You want to go ahead and turn eyes on the Saturday in Neyland. It was a hot one. I was there. Very, very hot.
Yeah, starting off with both teams had their week one game against an FCS opponent. Tennessee, obviously, they played Chattanooga. NC State, they played West Carolina. Grayson McCall, he's played football. This isn't his first time playing football. He's picked up a football probably his whole life, and he's a veteran in the QB position, and he knows all the zones, all the coverages, and just don't doubt him. Don't sleep on him this week. And Nico, we're probably going to touch on him more this episode. Nico had a really great performance in week one, breaking the program record for most yards in a single half. And I believe, we might have I wouldn't say necessarily a bloodbath or a bar fight, but it might be close in the first half. Then Tennessee pulls away in the second half because Tennessee's a 7.5 favorite right now.
Yeah, I think back to Saturday's performance, and I watched it in Neyland. At least the first half, I watched it live, and as I'm watching the game, people were, oh my gosh, they're on it's fourth down already, and we go for it, and we get first and goal. I really watching them play. They look way more complete under Nico. They look way more complete with Lance Hurd at left tackle. Um, I think, with the addition of Chris Brazzell from Tulane, freshman All-American, you got Dante Thornton now fully healthy. You got Brew McCoy back. And, of course, Mr. Squirrel White himself, the jitterbug. Um, you look at the receiving core, and then you look below them, guys like Nimrod, guys like Mike Matthews, who's currently nursing a hamstring. Should maybe see him Saturday, maybe not. A hamstring's something you don't rush. Um, you look at those guys, and then you look at the running back room. And you say, okay, Cam Seldon limited to carries. He was just getting back from I believe, a upper extremity shoulder injury. Then you look behind him, and you got guys like Deshaun Bishop, a local standout at Carnes. You got Khalif Keith. Um, Freshman Peyton Lewis is still not. I think he's banged up as well. He's about to come back. I believe also hamstring, if I'm correct. Could be wrong on that. I know we didn't see him. So you look at the running back room, the receiver room, the O line room, and you look at Heupel's interview. Okay, we talk about depth. He speaks on, and I know Gavin, you talked about touching on this um, in the interview later on. Heupel on Monday, he always does a Monday interview with the media, and he talks about how the D line is and the O line is the deepest. They said they played 17 D linemen alone on Saturday, just the defensive line. He speaks on that this is the deepest offensive line, the defensive line room that he's ever had under his tenure at Tennessee. And then he also goes on to speak about how they're 1 year out from being able to recruit and fill all those positions and not be cut short from a team standpoint. So as you look at this team compared to last year offensively, I believe that we're going to see a control tempo. People think Tennessee plays so fast, but if you look a lot of times they slow it down and then they go fast. They want to go fast, but they also like to go slow. So uh, offensively, I thought it was great. Defensively, I think our secondaries improved. I'm still nervous at times. Gavin, I think you're going to start speaking on who stands out for you for NC State. Receiver in particular, I'll let you get to him.
Can you kind of break down what Concepcion does well to have success, and does he remind you of anybody that you kind of went against in the past at that spot in the slot?
Yeah, first of all, he's got elite speed, really good hands, makes plays, on teams. On the offensive side of the ball, they do a good job of moving him around and, finding space for him to work and operate. He's strong, he's explosive. We got to know where he's at, throughout the course of the football game.
Kevin Concepcion, see if he reminded Heupel of a player that he played against in his past coaching career. And what Tennessee's going to have to do, they're going to have to defend him all 60 minutes, the whole game. And so he had, I think it might have been it was last week's game. He had catches for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. Last year, 2023, he had 41 carries and 321 yards off of that, and 7.8 yards per carry. So don't expect him to run the ball with Concepcion, because he's a dual threat in the run game and also the attack game in the air too. Also, last year he had 71 catches, 839 yards receiving, and 10 touchdowns. And I would say that it'd be a heavyweight matchup between Kevin Concepcion and Squirrel White, which he had 67 receptions and 803 yards. So, seems like it's going to be a bloodbath between these two receivers, don't you think, MYLAN?
Yeah, and when I think of that, I think about the offense that they ran last year, bringing in Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. I think when you look at Squirrel White and Concepcion, I think Concepcion would thrive in Tennessee's offense. I think he would be a star. He would start for us. I think we have the most loaded receiver room in the SEC. and I think probably top 3, top 5 in the nation with Oregon and Ohio State. But when you think about that, Squirrel White last year only got in the end zone 2 times, which is hard to believe. So two touchdowns to 10 touchdowns. He has a nick for finding the end zone, which is it's hard to do. He knows how to get in the end zone. Like you mentioned, he can rush it. Concepcion can as well. So Tennessee needs to look for jet sweeps, fly sweeps, a reverse. Right, they got to stay at home defensively and do their job. It's going to be interesting for me. I know Heupel speaks of the interview as well. One last point is he speaks on how big of a challenge this is going to be for his O line, defensive line, getting pressure. Their secondary is very experienced. They hit the portal very well. Got some portal guys as well as we did. So how well will Nico now from week 1 to week 2? Yeah, you're SEC Freshman of the Week. Okay, great. You also played Chattanooga. Now you're playing NC State, neutral site game. How are you going to perform? It's gonna be more of a challenge.
And going back to who performs better, and what do they have? What do they call it in the locker room? The generals thing in the locker room. The generals maxim.
Maximums, yeah, the maximums.
Yeah, maximums. Basically saying whoever makes the least mistakes in a game will win. If y'all didn't know that's something that they had in the locker room, just to kind of get them amped up for the game. And
what did you like most about Nico's vision and anticipation when connecting with his receivers?
Yeah, I thought he was extremely accurate, had his eyes in the right spot, did a really good job of hitting windows, and that's in between defenders and the second level, and over-under balls between the second and third level.
Next thing I want to talk about in Heupel's interview, someone asked him about Nico's great anticipation and vision. Nico has great ball placement, guys. And they're on the SEC Network. There's a show called Read and React with Cole Kublik and Roman Harper. Roman Harper complimented Tennessee's offense, saying that receivers catching the ball these days for Tennessee's offense, they don't slow down, unlike last year with Joe Milton, where they had to slow down because the ball was overthrown so much. Because since Nico, now they have Nico, he throws it so perfectly in a perfect window for them to catch, they can just zip right off to the end zone. So,
yeah, good point there. Like that, the placement is everything, and I last year I'm not taking up for him, but our receivers made some mistakes, like every receiver does, but our receivers made Joe Milton at times look bad. I felt like a lot of times that he may have thrown it 45 to 65 miles an hour, but it was still there. But not contradicting what you said, you're exactly right. I mean, it's a lot. You look at the receivers; they look so much more comfortable out there catching the ball with acceleration. One guy that I remember that caught the ball really, really well through acceleration, and he just so happened to win a Heisman, was Devontae Smith of Alabama. Devontae Smith, watching his craft when he played receiver, he caught the ball, and as he caught the ball, he was now accelerating as he was catching instead of waiting to catch it then accelerate. So that's what separated him from being. Oh, I was just saying that's what separated him from being not the Heisman to being the Heisman. So you look at a guy like that, and you look at these receivers. Look at Dante Thornton, both of his catches. Well, let's say one of his catches for a touchdown. It was a 30-yard strike. He catches it and accelerates into the end zone. You look at the ball placement. The throw of the game to me was about the 17 to 20-yard dig to Chris Braswell. Across the middle, it was phenomenal. Over 2 defenders. Braswell gets hit as he catches it. It's an elite NFL throw, and scouts are already seeing that right now. They're saying this guy's got the ball placement. Let's just continue to watch him grow. Is he who we think he is? Week 1, yes.
And I want to say Alabama won the national championship that year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What does Nico's performance in week 1 mean for the Vols? I know that they were playing against Chattanooga. Obviously, they blew them out. But As MYLAN said, he got SEC Freshman of the Year. Also, they played against Chattanooga, but I feel like Nico was just trying to not necessarily get his feet wet, but he seemed a lot more poised than he was in the Citrus Bowl, because I noticed that in the Citrus Bowl, he wasn't like throwing the ball away, or he wasn't throwing the ball away much, but being smart with the ball. But against Chattanooga, he seemed a lot more poised and being smart with the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you look at the stats, 24-28, I believe. The completion percentage, I mean, 80 something percent. I mean, I guess it was 85 or so, 84, 85, 86, something along in those lines. I don't have that stat written down, but anytime you're really above like 60 to 65, in my opinion, you're very accurate with the football with that many throws. And Tennessee's throws are not, hitches and slants. They're, a lot of digs, a lot of wheel routes, comeback routes, a lot of vertical routes down the field. So, yeah, I thought that he was worthy of Freshman of the Week in the SEC, but we're going to see who Nico is going to be this week. Is he, he's going to grow. He's going to continue to grow. He's a redshirt freshman, but this week will kind of foreshadow what we're getting. I think you're going to see Nico with more working his legs a lot more this week, Gavin. I really do. You look at the Citrus Bowl to Iowa. The man scored, I think, 2 to 3 times on the ground alone. He's deceivingly very fast. I think his intuition and his decision making separates him on another level compared to last year with Joe Milton.
Let's talk about score prediction. How close of a game do you think the game will really be? I'll go ahead and start mine. I think the score might end up being 17-31, somewhere close to where North Carolina was at last week, but Tennessee ends up being on top.
Yeah, I got Tennessee at the line right now. As I look, it goes up and down, right? We've seen 6.5. I've seen 7.5 today. Today being on Tuesday, that line will move either up or down before Saturday. When I look at Tennessee, I see a team that is going to beat you with depth up front. You look at Tennessee Saturday and you look at the stats, and you're like, well, I mean, they didn't have many hurries, they didn't have many sacks. Tyree West, but that man had a family at quarterback. First of all, he should have, and the running back Tyree West had a game against Chattanooga. I just want to point that out real quick. But I had people come up to me. It was like, oh, James Pierce. James Pierce. Where was James Pierce at? James Pierce was only held to 10 plays Saturday. Okay, they held him to 10 plays. So there's no need of getting your star players banged up, nicked up, or even hurt. Right? Take care of your guys. A great opportunity for those younger guys, those role guys, to get real reps, in-game reps that you cannot simulate in practice. So, I think our D line eats their O line up. I am anxious to see the one. If you ask me, what's one thing you're looking for this Saturday? I want to see how our secondary does. We're supposed to get, I believe it was Ricky Gibson back. Is that right? That interview, was it Ricky Gibson? They're talking about getting him back.
Yes, I think it was asking what his condition was, and Heupel said that he was fine, and he ended up saying that he was warming up before the Chattanooga game, so
it
seemed like he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah. So that's a guy that's going to add much. A starter last year. I mean, Ricky's going to he's going to be a big help for us in the secondary, and like you said, they're gonna be keying on Concepcion. So with that being said, you got to experience quarterback, experience running back. Who's going to step up for them offensively? Is Concepcion going to have catches? Sure. But the line set at 7.5. I'm going to take Tennessee to cover. If I was betting on this game, I would pick Tennessee to cover the spread. I don't know how many points will be scored. I would say I see Tennessee getting in the end zone 4 to 5 times. You might have a field goal or two sprinkled in there. NC State, early on, I think, when you play a football game as I coach, sometimes when you coach a football game, you get a feel of the game. And when I say a feel of the game, sometimes defenses struggle early on. Sometimes offenses struggle early on. They might show you a card that you've not seen on film. So, did Tennessee show anything Saturday against Chattanooga? They threw a reverse out there for fun to Brew McCoy. No, they kept it vanilla. They kept it simple. So NC State's going to have their hands full. They've never played a tempo like Tennessee's. I got Tennessee. I'm going to go Tennessee 45, NC State 21.
Not so fast, my friend. Oh, I'm kidding. Just teasing. AP poll reaction. FSU drops out of the AP poll after 0-2 start. We kind of already hit on this. Boston College going into Tallahassee. Bill O'Brien, the head coach there now, his first year. Also, that lost to Dublin. We did mention that. We mentioned both of those games. And trying to go more in depth on that subject and kind of why do you think Florida State's in the hole that they are now?
I never understood the hype surrounding Florida State currently right now. When I say that, Florida State and Tennessee recently were in the same boat. When I say the same boat, they were kind of in this, Mike Norvell comes in, Josh Heupel comes in. Florida State's had a little bit more recent success than Tennessee has, no doubt about that. But when you look at the two programs as a whole, you're like, why is the hype? Why are you all a top 10 team, AP, preseason? I don't understand. You get DJ, say his last name for me, I'm going to mess it up.
I'm probably going to mess it up too. Uangagole?
Yeah, I call him ukulele. I know fans out there that may hear that when they watch this video may think, oh, you're making fun of him. I just listen. I call him ukulele. But yeah, ukulele is out there. He starts his tenure at Clemson. Not a tenure, his career. He goes to Oregon State. I think he ended up. Did he not end up getting benched at Oregon State?
I don't remember him getting benched,
I feel like he struggled there. I could be wrong. Sorry if I'm wrong, everyone. I am human and I do sleep. And then he comes to Florida State. And, DJ reminds me of a lot of a Joe Milton. He's got the same body. He's got a great arm. But he doesn't have – Joe Milton had Josh Heupel. And he is a unpolished Joe Milton without Josh Heupel as a quarterback coach. He doesn't have anyone that can grow him. And so I felt like Florida State defensively. Listen, I watched that game last night, and Boston College hit mesh over and over and over again with a running back on the rail. It was great play calling. They eventually they shut it down. Florida State, I believe, gets back-to-back stops at halftime. I believe it's 14-6. You're thinking, okay, they got a chance. Coming out of halftime, Florida State receives the kick, and Ukulele throws an interception that ends up setting up for a Boston College touchdown. I don't know. I don't know the struggles, but you can put Florida State up there with Florida. I think I don't know if Florida State will have a bad as a record as Florida. Now let's keep in mind Florida does have the first strength of schedule, the toughest strength of schedule in the nation, but I think internally right now there's something going on in that locker room, and anytime you lose as a coach, you gotta get your team together, and your captains have to step up, and your leaders have to step up, and you really got to get everyone back on one page. And when people's on different pages, I mean, this thing can snowball. I believe before the game, right before Georgia Tech, I think I saw this on ESPN. They were a 33% chance. They had a 33% chance of getting in the college football playoff. after last night, or after the
1%.
Georgia Tech game, it dropped to, I believe, a 12-15. And then with the last night's loss, they have less than a 1% chance of
Yep.
getting in the CFP. So you look at that, well, see a CFP, right? And a lot of guys see that and they say season's over. There's still a lot to play for. I mean, you can still go to the New Year's Six bowl game. You can do a lot of great things. But I think internally right now there are problems in Florida State, and they gotta fix it soon, or they're gonna be calling for not just DJ's head, but Mike Norvell's head.
Yeah, talking about their strength of schedule, I have their schedule pulled up right now, and obviously, as you mentioned earlier, they have Samford up next this Saturday, and
Not
they
an
got,
easy.
and then they got Texas A&M, and then they got at Mississippi State. There's probably going to be a lot of cowbell there. They got versus Central Florida, Heupel's old team, and then at Tennessee, versus Kentucky, versus Georgia, at Texas, versus LSU, versus Ole Miss, and at Florida State. So not a very easy schedule.
Yeah, I feel bad for them. I don't because they're Florida. That's the one of the teams I hate the most, them in Alabama. But that's besides the point. You're right. Very tough schedule. You said the line was 4.5 wins. I'm taking the under, and I even might go under. I might go under 3.5. I think they go three wins this year. Unless something starts clicking with DJ or not DJ. Is it DJ Lagway? Is that how you say his last name?
Well, that was I don't know if he's a starting quarterback now, but that was the quarterback that they put in after Graham Mertz got apparently injured. Yeah, I think it's Lagway.
Yeah, I think that's the guy they're going to ride with as the season goes on because they see the future of their program. If they're really going to want to grow and contend in the SEC, they got to start thinking bigger picture.
And other impact games this week, Texas, number 3 Texas, is going to the Big House, which is also going to be the location of game day this weekend at Ann Arbor. So
big game.
That game seems to be a bloodbath. Quinn Ewers going to be starting for Texas, obviously. I haven't really dug into a lot of research on both of these teams, really, but both teams are really competitive. Obviously, Texas joined the SEC this year, but it just seems going into an environment, hostile environment like Michigan's, it's probably going to be a rough 60 minutes for the Longhorns.
You know, I look at this game and I love it. You know, Texas starting out, they lost their starting running back to an ACL injury for the season, and I look at Michigan, and we look at Michigan winning 30-10 over Fresno State, and you know, you look at that, and you're like, well, they won by 20 points. That's still basically a blowout. You know, Michigan is not Michigan of last year. They're going to hang their hat on running the ball in the Big House with the Big House supporting them, having their backs. Sure, they're going to hang their hat on that O-line, making it happen. Michigan's O-line, play action, making the passes when they need it most. However, Texas. I think Texas's D-line is ready for this test, and it's going to be a battle of the trenches. Listen, folks, if you don't know this, football always starts up front. And if you think it doesn't, then you need to go get educated on football. It does. It starts up front. If you don't have good interior defensive linemen, good offensive linemen, right, either way, you're not going to have a very healthy football program. And I think this is going to be a great battle of the trenches of the week. I believe right now Texas, it goes in as a I saw a 6.5 point favorite. It might have dropped to 4.5. I think it's in that range. It depends on what site you look at. What do you think, Gavin? What do you think of the spread?
I think, for my opinion, I think the spread might be 5-6.5 for Texas. I think Texas might overcome Michigan at home and then eventually make them probably ranked second in the nation because Ohio State, I think they play some cupcake team, but it's no conference team. And same with Georgia. honestly, now that I say that, they might have the chance to be the best team in the nation. And
I think if they go in the big house, and now you can say, well, Georgia beat number 13 or whatever Clemson was by 20, 21 points, okay, or whatever, whatever, 30 points, whatever they beat Clemson by. You can say, well, they deserve to beat them. Listen, if Texas goes into the big house and beats Michigan, we're talking early on, folks. I believe Texas should be the number one team in the nation, and I think what Sarkisian is doing there is great. Um, you know, I'm looking at Texas right now, and I on paper, I think they just have the Jimmies and the Joes this year to be great and to make. Obviously, I believe they're going to be a playoff team, but I believe they could be that top four and get that first round bye, which is huge. I got Texas winning in the big house, and I got them winning. I could be wrong. I know the big house is a tough place to play, but I got Texas winning by 2 scores. I think they pull out there at least by a 10-point victory.
all right. Thanks, y'all, for joining us for another episode of the VolsCast. Tune in for Sunday for my reaction video versus NC State. And also Sunday, we'll also go over, is Norvell really done in Tallahassee? How done is he? So, subscribe and like. Go Vols.